TruthSeekah and or its affiliates are not responsible for any strange phenomena that may occur during or after listening to this podcast, which may include the following: heightened senses of awareness, psychic abilities, UFO sightings, alien contact, time loss, out-of-body experiences, ringing in the ears, ESP, lucid dreaming, increased synchronicities, astral projection, telepathy, stronger intuition, levitation, miraculous healings, and or remote viewing. Please be advised to listen at your own discretion.
Won't you come and take me away? I just wanna be with you. Won't you come and take me away? To a place to walk on troubled seas, faith to stand when I don't believe. I just wanna be with you. Won't you come and take me away? I just wanna be with you. Won't you come?
You are now locked into the TruthSeekah Podcast.
Gargoyles! Psychics! Everything's ungodly! Dark savage!
Streaming live at TruthSeekah.com.
She's not a Christian!
Give it up, y'all.
Your portal to the paranormal, esoteric, and all things spiritual.
She's tampering in dark-sided stuff!
And now, your host, TruthSeekah.
Hey, what's going on, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls? I'm your host, TruthSeekah. This is the TruthSeekah Podcast. Excited, delighted to be with you guys again today. And usually we have been doing prayer on Wednesday nights, but tonight we have something a little bit different. Got a good friend of mine who's joining me here for this conversation discussion. But I would like to say, if anybody needs prayer, do not hesitate to let us know, and we'll try to get to that towards the end of the show. So let me know. We want to make sure that we're here for the people, and you're not alone. Whatever you're going through, let us know, man. We're here to pray for you guys, and we believe in the power of prayer. So with that being said, I want to move a little bit forward and say thank you to all of the Patreon supporters, everybody who believes in my work, the music, the podcast, the ministry that God has given me. You resonate with it, you find something of value, and you have partnered with me. I could not do this without your help. This is a listener supported show, so thank you guys from the bottom of my heart. And give a shout out to some of the latest patrons that we have who have just come on. Shout out to Christina Kramer. What's up, Christina? Thank you for partnering. Mark and Holly Zapita. Shout out to you guys. Letitia Young. Shout out. And Marino Torres. Blessings, brother. Thank you guys for partnering with me, believing in my work, and helping me push this thing forward. If you would like to support, head on over to patreon.com/TruthSeekah. There's many levels of giving and different tiers. You get a lot of cool stuff. I've produced over 200 songs in my career. You get access to all of that stuff. You get access to our Thursday night School of the Mystics. We also have tiers set up for the Sunday morning seer class. If you're looking to grow in community and a small group of people, we definitely have that stuff available for you to check out. So, yep, it's all there. Patreon.com/TruthSeekah. Check it out. So, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring on today's guest. But before I do, let me just give a little bit of background to maybe what you're going to hear in this conversation today. This is a friend of mine. We go back many years now, and being a truck driver in the past and having long days and being on the phone, three-way conversations with me and two other brothers, or sometimes 5 or 6 people on the phone, 7 or 8. We'd have so many people on the phone. We'd get into prayer. We'd pray for one another. We'd discuss the Bible. just do life together on the phone, man. And so we would do that. We'd have deep conversations, and I would say, man, I wish we had this stuff recorded. There's some meat in these conversations, and this would be a good radio show or something. So that was back, and I would say, like, we started having those conversations early on, maybe 2008 or before, but started the podcast, the Awakening podcast, about 2010, and it was just like a radio show on Blog Talk Radio. And so we would basically have those conversations that we had on the phone. We just move them to a public platform, open up the phone line for anybody who had something to add to the table. And many times those same people would call in. So that's what you're going to hear, because the guest today, Samuel McCray, he was definitely there for the majority of those conversations. So we had we're going to reminisce. We're going to catch up. I haven't talked to him in some time. We've done a lot of music together over the years, but I'm excited to have this conversation. Samuel McCray, welcome to the TruthSeekah Podcast, my friend. What is up?
Hey, how's it going, bro?
Hey, man.
Man, it's good to be here.
Do you remember those conversations, bro? Those how can you forget? They shaped your adolescence.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I was a homeschooled teenager with nothing better to do than stay on the phone all day with a guy in his 20s. So yeah, it was. Yeah,
I know, right? Great. But we would have church, man. We'd like me and you would have long conversations, ourselves. But we'd have 7-8 people on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
And just all over the world, people chiming in with us, and those early conversations, man. So that's it. People are doing it full time. I'm doing it full time.
Yeah,
I'm having those phone conversations full time now.
It's great. It's great, bro.
Look at God. That's awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, man, I just want to honor you, man. Our friendship, man. What you mean to me. Give some background about your life and your character, and I will say this, so like when I was going through a lot of my stuff, figuring out who I was and what is ministry, what does Christianity look like, what is this thing that God has called me to, there was a lot of back and forth, and most of that stuff was public. I was on Facebook. I mean, going back and forth, really double-minded over many situations, trying to figure out who I was, and then wanting to still be accepted by my peers. Samuel was there. He was a friend. There were times where I'm trying to figure out my own philosophy, my own belief systems, and I would be on the phone with Samuel, and I would throw ideas off of him, and I would say to myself, I would even tell him, okay, I know this is going to be too deep for you. After I tell you this, you're going to unfriend me. You're going to be like all the rest of them who have said, all of this crazy stuff about me. Once I tell you this, and there were different biblical truths that I had come to believe or whatever, whether it was like who Lucifer really was according to the Bible. I know that was a big one at the time and these things, but there was nothing I could tell Samuel that would drive him away. And I kind of felt like I got used to people leaving, that I was getting ready for Samuel as a friend to just say, all right, this dude TruthSeekah he's out of it, because many people are having those conversations at gospel rap concerts and ministry events, and Samuel was there. They would talk to him and stuff, but he stayed a close friend to me, man. Like the Bible says, showing long suffering, one who really walks with the Lord. So I want to commend you, bro, and that to this day, man, has meant the world to me, bro. So publicly, I want to say thank you for that, bro.
Well, thank you, man. Thank you. Yeah, no, that definitely, I recall those days very well. And I remember mutual acquaintances I would bump into, and they'd be like, hey, so you still talk to Derek? So what's going on with him? And I mean, like, there were times where I was like, man, I don't know. I just don't know if this is like really like a good direction or whatever. But anytime that people would ask or whatever, I'd be like, nah, man, he's just, because the whole time I can publicly say that through everything I've always been able to see your heart for God, for reaching out to people, for ministering to people or whatever. And in the end, I've been, I knew that back then, but realizing more and more that in the end, what matters most is it's not the checking all the right theological boxes or whatever. It's about just love. So,
yep, love covers a multitude of sin, and again, commending you, bro, just showing me what a real Christian is like. And that term long suffering goes a long way, that you be able to suffer long with someone. I remember because we need to set this up a little bit more, man. We weren't just friends. You were young, man. So you came somebody gave you a TruthSeekah CD. You were maybe 13.
It was you, bro. No. Okay, so I don't know if you remember. First time we met you was at the Cave. We just happened to pop in. It was like some Sunday night or something like that. Yeah. The Cave Ministries, Pastor Brian. And I'd heard people talk about you before, but I didn't have any, like, a face or anything to put it with. So, and then we connected from there. You gave me a CD and stuff. No, go ahead. No,
that's it. You set it up, man. I've been talking enough. I'm going to talk even more, but I'm going to let you talk a little bit.
Yeah, no. We definitely, we met and you gave me your CD. I played it. And I recognized the I'm Shining track because they used to play that on Christian radio.
Christian radio. Heck yeah, I made it.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, man, this dude's famous.
Me too, right? Everybody thought that.
Yeah.
They still think that.
It was great though. No, but it was still you've definitely progressed a long way in your artistry, but even still, looking back, it was a dope track for that time in your life, and definitely for me too. So it was great. And then we like exchanged numbers or something. You called and built from there. But it was definitely a dope time for real. But
yeah. Then so the first time I remember meeting you, and you don't remember this. You were just a wee little boy, wee lad, and you were when we met that time. But I remember, going to Saraland Assembly. It was a church that I fell in love with Jesus at, pretty much. There's a bug right here that's freaking me out. I'm trying to get rid of this bug as we're talking. Sorry, man. Let's just put him under this cup. So yeah, Saraland Assembly. I don't know if it's a spider or what. It scared me.
Yeah, no. Alabama bugs don't play.
Yeah, man, for real. So I fell in love with Jesus at Saraland Assembly, and then some years later, there was this family who came. You guys would, your family wore the long dresses. You guys wore button-up white shirts. You and your dad, I believe, both had the haircut. You were a little fella. You must have been 6, man.
Yeah,
your brother was just baby.
I looked little, but I was probably like 8 at that time that you're talking about. So
okay, so you guys came to Saraland Assembly, and you guys stuck out. Because there's a regular, Assemblies of God church, on the move, upbeat, cutting edge music, cutting edge lights, laser show. Here comes Samuel and his family coming in, really modest, wear the dresses, hairs are in buns and stuff. But then, you guys would really get into worship. Your family's really near and dear to my heart and to many people's hearts, really. You guys' love for God and the way that they brought you up. But, even then, seeing you guys worship the Lord. And I remember during the altar call, you were just a little guy, man, and your mom was holding you, and you were shaking and quaking in the spirit, bro. And I remember this little boy, the fire of Jesus on him, like God loving on you or whatever was happening. I know theologically you try to, because you probably didn't give your heart to Jesus until many years later. So theologically, maybe there's some different stuff in your head. I want to break that down. Because I know we've talked about that, but I remember seeing that.
Yeah,
it's like, man, this little kid, bro, and he's on fire and God's loving on him, man. So that's the first time I seen you, and you guys would come to church, and we'd all pray together and worship and stuff. But like I said, you don't remember me. Fast forward, God, 6 years or so. You was like 13 at the time. We met there, became really good friends. You became like a little project, man, because you were so homeschooled and you were green to everything. You fell in love with Christian hip hop. I was a Christian artist, and we would hang out. We'd work on music together. I recorded your first song here in my studio and recorded a lot of stuff for you here. We've done so much music over the years, but those early years of seeing you progress into Christian rap, of even maybe this little homeschooled boy maybe even tried to take on the persona of what a Christian rapper looked like, what a Christian rapper talked like, and it was definitely dated like most Christian rappers are 7 years ago. And that was so funny, man.
Yeah, bro. Yeah,
he would come over. We would say stuff, and I'm gonna throw you on the. I'm just gonna make fun.
It's all right, bro. Go ahead.
Because we got to reminisce, man. We got to have it on record.
It's real.
And so he'd been hanging out with the Christian rappers and some of our black friends and stuff. They're rapper. They have the lingo and stuff. And somebody would say something. He'd be like, "Oh, for real?" It's like, hold on, don't say that, because he's this little white guy. He's like, "Oh, for real?" It's like almost like B-Rad. But I was like, you kind of sound like, you know what I'm saying, Medea, man. You need to like. That was the thing back in '93. Like Carmen said, "For real," and it was cool.
Yeah.
But,
that was. He was my idol. So like, It was Carmen and McCray. I didn't have anybody else to like base my persona off of. So.
But it was Carmen way before Lecrae, though, right?
Oh yeah. No, I mean, I was
the only Christian rap you heard was Carmen.
Exactly.
He was a Christian rapper.
Yeah. It was great, bro. No, I remember those times. I definitely remember a few times where you were like, "Man, you got to stop talking like that. You sound like a girl. You sound like
an old black lady."
Yeah. No, what you talking about, man?
He's like, "Oh, for real?"
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, just those early years, man. And then like, you know, we did a show together. One of our first shows we did together at the River Church over here in Sims, Alabama, I believe it is. And so we did a show there, and I remember a bunch of people hanging out in the foyer before, but it's after the show, and people were talking about Linkin Park, and Linkin Park was really big at the time. And you're like, who's I never heard of Linkin Park, and everybody's like, "Who are you?" And he's like, "Dude, I don't know anything about pop culture. I don't know any secular bands. Like, you guys didn't know any secular music. Like, that was forbidden. A lot of TV was even forbidden in your home, right?"
Not like all TV, bro.
All TV.
Like
y'all would get Christian VHS tapes sometimes, though, right?
We had some VHS that I think at the time, whenever we met you, we still didn't watch TV, like at all. Like DVDs, VHS, whatever. We didn't even watch that. We started watching more and more, like more Christian, like pretty much just like all the corny Christian movies that you can think of. I've seen pretty much every one. But yeah, no, that was, we didn't know anything about the outside world at all, really. It was,
really sheltered. I mean, the only, like, you guys eventually would get on YouTube and stuff, but your parents would drop you off at the or you guys would go together as a family to get on the internet to send emails and things.
And
you would spend hours at the library.
For real.
On the internet.
No, I didn't get my first phone until I think I was like 18. And finally, like, I scrounged up a little money. I think I was working some odd jobs for somebody or something.
I remember that.
Yeah. But
because I was worried how you were going to keep it on.
Yeah.
Because you were working just odd jobs. It wasn't like a sure thing.
Yeah. No, but so no. Before that, the only internet access that I had was the library, and so I mean, when I discovered YouTube. That was like my whole world changed basically, and it was crazy.
Yeah, we would hang out, and you'd come over, and I'd pick you up, and we'd come over here. We'd work on music, we'd pray, but then I would show you. We do Bible studies, we did all that, but then I would show you like secular rock bands and stuff, and you would just like, wow. What is this? And you would just like, we would watch Limp Bizkit videos because you had no idea what it was, even though Limp Bizkit's like way old. It wasn't even relevant at the time. You were like, wow, this is cool, man.
No, I mean, some of it I was like sitting back in my chair, like waiting for to like crawl out of the wall or something.
Oh yeah, man.
It was crazy. I mean, to me, even some Christian rock artists were like,
Skillet.
Super creepy. So, nah, like Red, like for real. One time I remember I walked out.
I remember that.
It was a Flyleaf. Or
oh wow,
it was one of those. Yeah, I think it was Flyleaf. Or Fireflight. No, it's one of those F bands.
Oh,
they were playing at Winter Jam, and I literally walked out, even though they're a Christian band, and I've since gone back and visited. It was great, but at the time it freaked me out because like I said, I was super sheltered, didn't have anything to compare it to, so it was definitely crazy for me at the time.
And it's okay. So when we talk about super shelter, I wanna just make sure that you want to talk about this a little bit, because this is always something that's interesting to me about you and your family. We'd always and even now you hear about people talking about being off the grid. I want to be off the grid. I don't want nobody to know who I am. I don't want to have any. I don't want them to have my fingerprint. I don't want to be a part of the system at all. I don't know if you want to unpack this a little bit about the theology or whatever, but maybe it had something to do at the time with like the mark of the beast, right? So there's many people who believe that now they think the RFID chip is the mark of the beast. If you get this radio frequency identification chip in your right hand, it's the mark of the beast mentioned of in the book of Revelations. But before that, 30 years before that even, there was this thing about the social security number. And when everyone had to get social security cards. And so that generation to them was the fulfillment of biblical prophecy that we're going to have our names are going to have a number that goes with it. And we can't buy, sell, or trade without this number. We can't get a job. We can't even travel the road systems. We can't drive. We don't have identification. So they're numbering the people. And so this is a big thing in many Christian communities. It was and still is for many. Did your parents believe that at the back then?
Absolutely, like that, like 100%. I want to definitely give props to them and make sure that I don't sound like I'm talking down about my family at all or whatever. But definitely even give props to them for enacting what they were believing or whatever, like actually taking action on what they thought was happening. So I mean that does take a certain amount of courage and stuff. So definitely respect for that. But yeah, at the time, they were just seeing how much more mandatory the social security number was becoming, how you really couldn't do anything without it. So my sister, she was born back in Los Angeles in a hospital or whatever. But before, I guess that was before they automatically would give you a social security number when you were born. So she never got one. But then when it came to me, they had me born at home. So they like actually went through that whole birthing process by themselves. It was just my mom and my dad there. Like didn't even have a midwife, didn't have anything. They felt like
no medicine.
No, they right before I was born, they stumbled across some teaching that basically was saying that all medicine and all doctors are evil and it's witchcraft and
Pharmakeia. Pharmakeia,
sorcery. So they just pretty much started shunning all medicine, and so they had me born at home. And with that, I didn't have birth certificate. They drew one up on some old computer or something like that. Supposedly had it notarized, but it wasn't official at all. So they actually the birth certificate was actually too small. So they had this notary put a stamp on a separate piece of paper and like put it together with the birth certificate.
It's like taped together.
Yeah, exactly. I don't even know where that is. It probably burned up or something like that years ago. But yeah, no, it was extremely sheltered growing up, and just my whole life it was drilled into my head that that social security number was going to be the way that the government rounded everybody up and tracked everybody down and said, you have to get the mark of the beast or else. Now, they didn't actually believe it was the mark of the beast because both my parents have social security number and identification and all that crap. But they definitely believed that it was going to happen like anytime. Like they honestly believed like within the next couple of years, back in the 90s, they thought that any moment the government was going to round everybody up and force them to take the mark of the beast or else be killed. Mm-hmm. So they definitely raised us with that kind of conspiracy theorists mentality, which they weren't the only ones. I've actually met several, not a lot, but I've met several other people who were raised the same way. But
that was preached in a lot of churches too. You know? Yeah.
I didn't even know that, but cause that's like before I was born, when that was starting to become like a frenzy or whatever. Yeah. But
it wasn't just you. So you have two other younger siblings, and it was the same story for them. They were both born at home, and no medicine.
Mm-mm. No. Our whole lives, which you can say we're lucky, or you can say we're blessed, whatever. But we never really had any major health issues. Never that I can remember. Never broke any bones. I think I might have broken a toe bone one time when I was like 12. But
the Lord healed it.
Exactly. Well, even a doctor can't really do anything with that.
I know, right? I know that's the thing.
Medicine, so
unless it's piercing the skin at this point, there's not really much to do.
So, but no, we were definitely blessed in that regard. And there were a few instances where there were some times where we got, I don't know, seriously sick or something. But God always provided. So I'll definitely give honor to where honor is due to my parents for really putting faith into action in that case, and praying through and I definitely power of God in that instance.
Yeah. That's something that happened, like whenever you guys would get sick, is that there was no, let's call the doctor. The baby's running 104 fever. For a young couple who have a kid, we freak out. Yeah. Okay, we got to get them to the hospital. We got to break this fever, 105, because you can overheat. You can have brain damage. Like, there's a bunch of different things they say, whether it's fear-based or whatever. Your family, when you guys would get sick or run a cold, they would immediately fast and pray.
Yeah, yeah. And they
had that it was maybe a demonic attack or something?
Yeah. Yep. They had a few other people who, a couple other families that believed the same way, not in the immediate Mobile area, but they would call them up and kind of get a prayer chain going, I guess. And so there was definitely, I've seen the evidence of that. Now, some people might say that's like tempting God or something, but I've definitely seen that God does honor faith like that. Yeah. And I can't even say that I have faith like that for real. I can't, but definitely have seen God honor that. So,
yeah, man. It's definitely a testimony for me of, like, people who don't get the, all the shots and stuff like that, and all the vaccines. Oh, your kid's gonna get smallpox and die. Oh, the reason we give you these vaccines is so you don't get smallpox. How old are you? 25?
I'm 26.
26 now, and at this point, can you still say you've never been to the doctor?
I've never had any vaccines or anything like that.
Never had any vaccines. Never been. Yeah. We might need to be careful, like who we're telling this to, but it's the truth, and so it would build faith for those people who would say that, like, look, I don't feel comfortable with all of this lead and mercury and all the stuff that's going into these vaccines you're pumping into my kid. Autism rates are out there ceiling. There's many people linking that stuff to autism and stuff. Your brothers and sisters, you guys have been perfectly fine. Again, your family fasted and prayed when you guys would have a fever or get sick. Most of us do that anyway, but we would give them some Tylenol to try to break the fever. Little do we know that the reason you're actually getting a fever is because your body needs to burn that thing out of you. So going through that fever and that temperature, your body overheating, is to burn that thing out, and for you to sweat it out when we give the kids Tylenol, it's to bring the temperature down. It's going to be okay. When your body is really fighting, you're fearfully and wonderfully made. So God knows what he's doing. He's put the things in your body to fight off that kind of stuff. So that there is some faith that's been built there as well, with just hearing about you guys. Hey, these guys are okay. You guys may have not have heard of these people, but I know them and they've been okay. There, maybe it gets into extremism. Maybe you were just lucky. Maybe you're blessed, as you'd say. That there's other people I know. There was a guy. We've talked about this guy in the past, but he felt like he was the last apostle to America, and that God mandated him to come. Yeah, it was just him. He's a Messiah complex is what we call that. But he's the last apostle that God has anointed for America, and he took a vow of poverty, and he lives in the woods of Meridian, Mississippi, and he will go open air street preach and all this stuff, and they're really against any type of system. I mean, pharmaceutical system, the government, welfare, they're just against it all. Took a vow of poverty to be like Jesus. Jesus said, owe no man nothing and all that. So they took that literal. But there was an instance where his kid got sick and was coming down with some, so I don't know exactly what it was, but she needed medical attention. Yeah. And the neighbors told on him and told the law enforcement, and they had a standoff with the guy because his kid was in the house supposedly dying, and he was like fighting the cops and wouldn't let them take his kid because they were believing God for a healing. You have other stories like, from the band Metallica, the lead singer James Hetfield. Supposedly his mother was a very Christian woman who ended up dying from cancer, I believe it was, and if she would have went to the hospital, they probably could have treated her and helped her deal with that. He became mad at God and mad at the church because of that, and was very vocal about it. She was a Christian scientist as well, or believed in Christian Science, where they really pushed off any type of medical attention and stuff like that. Maynard from Tool, to the song 10,000 Days, his mother struggled with cancer for 10,000 days and finally lost the battle, but he commended her faith, that she's with the God that she so wanted to be with and served. I mean, we talk about this is kind of close to home too. Gene Duffy, so we just lost a good brother. He was a street preacher, a man of God. Someone told me that it was because of his extreme faith that he was taken from us too early, that if he would have went to the doctor and worked through that, or got some medical attention, that maybe he would still be here preaching the gospel. Being a person of faith, it's like, hey, God knows what he's doing. If it's his time, it's his time. At the end of the day, we all have to believe that, right? When it's our time, it's our time. Where do you stand on that now? You know what I'm saying? When we have examples and we have things like that's going on, like do we go to the doctor? Do we take the medicine? We get cancer? Do we just fast and pray? I mean, where are you at now with that?
I mean, I've like going back what you were saying a second ago about the man who had the kid who was with the standoff with the police. I've heard tons of stories like that. I mean, growing up the way that I did, I heard those stories were passed around for people to pray for and everything. But I definitely heard many stories of children dying from different stuff because their parents wouldn't take them to the hospital. So, I mean, where I stand now, I believe that God can heal. I don't believe that he always does. And for whatever reason, I mean, you can debate that, whatever. I think that God has given us wisdom to a certain extent. Now, I mean, growing up the way that I did and seeing people who I knew who would go to the doctor for every little thing, I kind of always question that a little bit because, like, I'm fine and you're going to the doctor, nothing's even wrong with you. So I still don't think that, I think that we maybe rely too heavily on the medical system the way that it is right now. But I've definitely been in need of medical attention since moving out of my parents' house, since moving out here. Yeah. So I have benefited from the medical system, but again, I'm not going to say that I put all my faith in that or whatever. But I'm definitely thankful for medicine at this stage in my life.
Yeah, so a lot of people who believe that strain would say that shows a lack of faith, that you have to go to the doctor, and they're kind of judged, or even if you're in a congregation of people who believe that, and that if you do go to the doctor, then it shows a lack of faith. You didn't fully trust God. You doubt it. And, it's debatable, I don't know. I didn't grow up like that. You know what I'm saying? You did. And it's your story. And it's a really amazing story. Not going to the doctor, never going to the doctor, not having a social security card, birth certificate, things like that. You're becoming a young man. Your parents have jobs. They have IDs and all that stuff. You try to get a job with, son, we need to see some identification. Nobody knows who you are. You have no proof that you exist on the earth. I was scared that if we got pulled over, they would take you to customs. You can't prove yourself. Like,
for real. One time I was mowing grass for a friend of ours. And like, I don't even think she was really paying me. If that, she was an older woman, maybe was giving me $1 for it or something. I wasn't doing it for the money. I was just trying to help out a friend. A couple of cops came over and like literally detained me for about a half hour. And they're like, we need to see some ID, because you're not allowed to cut grass without a license and stuff. And I tried to explain, I'm just helping somebody out. And they're like, no, we need to see ID. They wouldn't believe me that I did not have identification. Like they would not believe me. Finally, I gave them my name, told them my date of birth, and told them where I live and everything. They called it back into the station, had somebody, run like a search on me or whatever. Couldn't find anything. They finally let me go. But yeah, it was crazy. It was a little scary at that moment.
They finally got me, Mom. They rounding us up.
Yeah, exactly.
They got me first.
Yeah.
Well, you have to laugh about it now, right? Am I being insensitive, or you kind of do?
No, I definitely laugh about it now. I don't even know that I would actually change anything about my childhood, simply because it has made me who I am today. It was definitely harder than I feel like it maybe had to be, harder than a lot of other people have it. Like, but still, I'm thankful for it, because all of it shaped me into who I am today and kind of put me on the journey that I'm on now. So,
so trying to get a job that would make it hard for you growing up. You're 26 now. You recently got married as well. You need to produce some type of ID and go before a judge, go before that system, and to get that seen by the judge or whatever. So it's a God ordained thing. Do it the right way. But anyway, you had to do that, and some of that stuff became hard. Did I haven't even talked to you. I know, because I was talking to you while you were in the midst of trying to see how you can get some ID, because nobody knows who you are. You can't claim yourself. Like, where are you at now with that? You're working, you're married now. How did you go about getting that stuff?
Well, I talked about my situation to another friend of mine, and she mentioned it to her mom, and her mom put me in touch with the Homeschool Legal Defense Association. And it's a law firm basically that focuses specially on homeschool related issues for people who didn't go to public school or private school or whatever. They hire and stuff. So they definitely helped me out a lot. They put me in touch with a lawyer out in California, where I was born, Los Angeles. And we ended up having to make a road trip out there. When was that? I guess the maybe fall of 2016, I guess it was. Summer or fall, somewhere in there. We went out there and went before a judge. My dad actually came out with me, came out there. So it was just kind of a God thing that my parents actually, at least my dad actually was accepting that I was making my own choices. And so he actually went and came with me and vouched for me to the judge basically, and kind of helped confirm my story. So I got a delayed birth certificate there. And then that was probably the hardest thing. And then after that, I had to jump through a bunch of different hoops to get my social security number. But it all worked out. And the guy who I initially started working for when I came out here was nice enough to let me work for cash until I got my social security number and everything, got my ID straightened out. So yeah, it was definitely all a bunch of things that kind of collided at the right time. And so it was just kind of even down to when I was at the Social Security office, the guy who was helping us, he had a "What Would Jesus Do" bracelet on. And when we had to go, we had to leave to get some further identification to show him. When we came back, we probably weren't going to be assigned to the same person. And sure enough, we got back with the same person. So it was, even that it was kind of a small confirmation to me. That even down to we got a Christian guy who would be maybe not fully understanding, but at least kind of understand a little bit. Sympathetic at least. Yeah. So it was definitely, I think it was a God thing. It all things work together for the good. So.
Amen. So you said that, your dad went out there with you, and he let you make your own decisions. Your mom really wasn't on it. She still didn't vouch or don't really like the fact that you got it. Where do they stand with that now?
She came with me. She, like the whole family, went out there. Kind of took the opportunity to just kind of go out and see where I was born and see where they were living back then. But she came with, but she didn't go to the courthouse with us. She really was not on board with that. She's accepted, she's accepted that I'm old enough to make my own choices and stuff, but she definitely wasn't on board. Probably still to this day wishes that I hadn't, gotten identification, but it's at this point, it's not a big deal anymore. So it's something that we kind of worked through and moved past. But,
which all families do. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, exactly. So.
Yeah, it's an interesting story, man. And so, something out of a movie even,
Yeah.
It made it hard for you.
Yeah, it did. It definitely did.
But again, what I'm saying, commending your mom and dad for standing up for what they believed in. If this was the end, like they literally thought it was the end.
Yeah.
Just like you read like the severity in the scriptures. Hey, it's about to go down. We're at the end. I mean, even some years later, I got into what sects of believers or the Hebrew Israelites who would preach the end. We are at the end. The bombs are going to drop at any moment. Get your life right. We have to leave this. We have to leave America. Like they taught it, and they would give you scriptures and line upon line and precept, and they preached it with an urgency. And then they would show you things in the government, the King Alfred plan, all of this stuff that's in the government, like files that talk about, like, first of all, eliminating all minorities. And they would show you these plans. Yeah. Maybe a lot of it was even conspiracy made up stuff, but it's whoever put it out there was good enough to make it go viral. And there's still people who are into that now. They're waiting for Jesus to crack the sky any day and all of this stuff to melt away. But I guess even before that, they're looking for, like, they're still looking for Christians to get their heads cut off, like, any moment. You know what I'm saying? I don't know where do you stand on that, the end of the world? Because I was big into it, the RFID chip. Yeah. Like we preached that was the mark of the beast, and they're gonna round us up. There's FEMA camps and FEMA coffins, the King Alfred plan. I mean, there's so much stuff out there and it's people who fear. It's really a fear, right? But where do you stand, maybe even on the end times, with that, especially with where you came from? You're gonna approach it with a little bit of sensitivity, right?
Yeah, I definitely. I mean, I honestly don't really know. I mean, I'm
great. Best answer. Praise God for your answer.
I'm to the point where I'm okay with not knowing a lot of stuff. Like, I've really deconstructed a lot of stuff that I believed when I was even just years ago. Like,
that's why I wanted to have you on, because I know you did. I want to see where you are.
So at this point, I don't know. I know that I've heard some people who believe that that Revelation already happened and all of it has been fulfilled and all that. And I've never really actually.
Yeah. So you don't. It's not. There's other things that you would rather spend those, 15, 20 hours a day, or say however many hours you have in a day that you're awake, or even sleep. Learning about and discussing and things that are more important. Because if it's pre-trib, you get to go. Post-trib, you get to go.
Exactly.
Maybe
it's already happened. If
it's already happened, we got to figure out where we are now. Are we in the new covenant? Are we is Satan ruling the world? 1,000 years of terror, 1,003 years of peace. It gets crazy. There's some interesting stuff out there. All of it's interesting, and the fun. And I'm more concerned with like why people believe it, and especially like. Knowing as much as I've studied and being a part of different sects or whatever, I know why they believe it. That's okay. So, and I have my beliefs too,
I just, honestly, I've gotten tired of the hype around it. Mm-hmm. Like everybody wants to study Revelation because it's scary. And it's like, the Christian version of a horror film or whatever. And so they just want to study it because of the stigma about it. And I've just gotten to the point where it's like, there's so much more important stuff that we can talk about,
For sure. That's why we're not going to keep talking about the book of Revelation on this podcast, because there's some really more important stuff we could talk about. It's funny though, just to see where people believe, and
absolutely.
My beliefs have changed radically, and I think they're more of a biblical approach to it versus the movies, even Left Behind series that influenced a lot of that stuff. Well, let me ask you this though, especially coming from very sheltered life. I never had to worry about this, but I talked to a lot of friends who grew up in the church, and so maybe they would come home, Mom, Dad, they get no answer. They immediately think I may have missed the rapture. Family's gone. I don't see the family vehicles here. Family's in the backyard.
Yeah.
You're like, what? Mom, Dad, freaking out. Have you ever had that encounter? Because I've talked to a lot of Christian friends who they've had that experience. They thought they got left behind.
No, it definitely happened, for sure. And it would happen when maybe I would be home alone with my dad or somebody, and the rest of the family would be out before we had cell phones or whatever. And even after we had cell phones, maybe the phone would die or something, and couldn't get a hold of the rest of my family. Some people, first thing they jump to is worrying about if they had a wreck or something. Me, the first thing I jumped to was, did the rapture just happen and they're gone and I'm left here and everything. And even I used to be so afraid of that we had a bunk bed. My brother and we shared a bunk bed growing up. And so in the middle of the night, just at random hours, I would wake up and roll over to see if he was still there, because he was, this is back when he was, I don't know, 6 or something, I knew that he, that it was always taught that the children were going to get grouped in with believers because they were too young to understand or too young to decide.
By proxy or default.
Yeah. So
age of accountability.
I knew that my brother would be taken if the rapture happened. So I would roll over and look down, make sure that he was still there, and I'd be like, okay, good, I can go back to sleep.
Yeah, you being a growing boy with hormones, going through puberty, having to wonder if God came to collect and separate the righteous from among the wicked. Exactly. At least now, maybe, you're a little bit older, some of that stuff's behind you. There's at least, and even being a Christian, like, if that's true, like the way that we've been told, there's an inner knowing. The Bible says you can know the hope of your salvation versus a guessing game. Like I have to guess and wonder if I'm going to go or not. There's a hope of your salvation, which I'm sure for you is found in Christ alone, right? Yeah. There was, I remember like some weird doctrine, like, and this was at an old church I used to go to, but the pastor was preaching, and this was a fear that I had as a kid, that and the preacher was saying this like it was biblical truth, and I know it's not, but he would say, like, if you're in a car accident, I used to have a fear, if you're in a car accident and you are about to hit a tree and you curse, what the and you hit that tree, holy, and you just say that word, and then you die, you will spend eternity in hell because you didn't get a chance to repent of that wickedness that came out of your mouth. You'll spend eternity. There's these weird little Christian loopholes and clauses that the blood of Jesus was not strong enough to overcome that dirty word, or whatever the case is. I don't know what people believe, but he said that, and then he also, just if you sin before you die and you don't have a chance to repent, then you go to hell. And it's like weird little, I know you had little stigmas like that. Was that one of you ever thought about that or heard that or anything?
Yeah, no, I still to this day struggle with a lot of that type of preaching that was so drilled into my head as a kid. I mean, really, I think they say that, like, the first few years of your life are really what shape you the most. Even when you grow up and you change your mind on some things, or you discover new ideas or whatever, still a lot of that stuff that you were taught as a child still feels real to you to some extent or another, So I still definitely have those thoughts like that. Sometimes I've come to the point where I believe that I believe what the Bible says about salvation being through grace alone, and it's or by grace through the venue of faith. So I believe now that if God has saved you from your sin, from yourself, however you want to term it or whatever, that he will, God isn't this cruel, vindictive person that we've been taught, through the church, that he's just waiting for you to do something wrong so he can just smite you or whatever, Yeah. So I definitely believe that God is faithful to see us through. And I even believe that it's not even really us that keeps us. Like, a lot of times you're told, oh, you gotta just believe hard enough. And sorry, my cat is trying to crawl over everything. Sorry. But yeah, no, I mean, I've definitely been told that all my life, that you gotta like hold on and believe and stuff. And I even have come to the point where I really believe that it's God who even gives us the ability to believe in the first place, So like, I find comfort in that. It's not anything. It's not about how good I can perform and how good I can do or whatever. But God just keeps me. And that sounds a bit like, I don't know, maybe Calvinism or whatever. I definitely was shaped some by Calvinism, flirted with it for a little while. I'm not by any means a Calvinist at all. I don't know what I consider myself now. But yeah, I just personally, I believe that God is more than willing and able to keep someone inside of his love, instead of us trying to work our way to stay inside of his love, Yeah.
Calvinism was a weird one for us, especially like, cause it's like the counter opposite maybe of Pentecostal evangelicalism and about it's about feelings. So like that side of Christianity, that doctrine was about having a head knowledge and like really was about having the right doctrine, and the wrong doctrine could send you to hell, and all of these things. And so when we first dealt with Calvinism years ago, a lot of our friends got into it because of McCray, the Christian rapper. McCray had a song that talked about, I got a backpack full of tracks and I keep a Johnny Mac. And we had people who followed McCray, like literally, like McCray was their pastor. We know all those people, and they wanted to figure out what a Johnny Mac was, and so it was a John MacArthur study Bible, and so they would read that and eventually find out that was Calvinism was something that a lot of Reformed theology guys, preached and believed, and so they went down that route and disassociated themselves from me and many other Christians because we were Pentecostal because we believed in the gifts of the Holy Spirit was still at work, and God does still heal people, and miracles still happen, and ecstatic worship, and all of this kind of stuff that we believed in. And so that was a really weird one, losing friends because of that. That's even in the church. That's not even with believing anything that was like pseudo biblical or extra biblical stuff like that. So it was kind of a rough one for me. I know you experienced some of that too.
Yeah, no, I kind of find it ironic that people who believe that it's God who saves only, and God chooses who's going to be saved and who's not going to be saved and all that, also believe that you have to believe a certain set of, like, you got to tick all the boxes. Because I mean, if you really believe that it's all God, then, and you're putting this other criteria, that sounds a whole lot like work to me. That sounds like you're trying to, even I've come to the realization that outside of, the Reformed theology debate or whatever, just as a side note, I've come to the realization that it really, like, even trying to believe the right things is a form of work that we believe saves us. And if we truly believe that it's God who saves us, then we've been hung up way too long on trying to make sure that everybody has, these different boxes that checked and everything, and questioning people. Yeah, no, go ahead.
No, so do you pretty much believe that maybe a lot of these religious sects or Christian sects hold a piece of the truth, and maybe their piece, at least part of that, is really beautiful, and the other part is very disgusting or vile even, maybe, or they're off? That's how I look at it. I mean, I look at some of the stuff from the Pentecostals, beautiful worship, very spiritual. I look at some of the rightly dividing the word of truth and the Reformed guys, and then I look at even the Messianic believers, and there's something from all of those places that I've been that is something very beautiful that drew me to that, and I feel like they all have a piece of it. And you've done enough studying, you've been around, you've ministered at enough churches to see some crazy stuff and some really beautiful stuff. Like, so do you wouldn't just call, I'm assuming, but you wouldn't just call yourself, I'm this, or I'm a Christian this, or I'm a Christian that, or you just kind of respect the beauty in just Jesus alone? Like, what do you call yourself, man?
So this might get a little deeper here, but at this point, I guess I call myself a Christian simply because I am part of that religion. And people want to say Christianity isn't about religion, it's relationship. Nah, Christianity is a religion, bro. I mean, be honest, And there are aspects of Christianity that I love, as far as the organized religion aspect of it, the church buildings and church meetings and, whatever. There's parts of it that I love, parts of it that I don't like. I still operate within that honestly, because that's part of my, that's exactly. So I, beyond being a Christian, I would just consider myself a follower. And I'll say stuff. We were at a Bible study a couple weeks ago, and somebody, I don't even remember exactly everything that went into that, but I said something about, I really don't believe that Jesus came to start a new religion. And everybody's like, yeah, you're right. Amen. And I'm like, no.
This religion.
This religion. He didn't come to start this. Back whenever Jesus came, people who followed Jesus still continue to follow Judaism. They still continue to follow whatever. And Paul wrote to them and said, hey, don't put your faith in this. And if you go back to relying on this, then Jesus means nothing to you. But even while they were relying on Jesus, some of them would continue, even Paul himself, continue doing some religious rituals and Jewish practices and stuff like that. And I've come to realize there's not necessarily anything wrong with that. You be part of the culture that you're part of. But Jesus didn't come to make you something different as far as to convert you to this new religion or to start this new tradition or whatever. Jesus
traditions
came to give
of
life, you know, and wherever you find yourself, Jesus came to give life, you know. So that's, I mean, I don't know how many people I know. No, go ahead. Yeah.
No, I'm with you. And there's a growing amount of people who are with you. And I think that's why people gravitate towards podcasts and discussions like these, is because they still believe, they still have a foundation of Christ, but they've rejected the majority of Christendom. They find it there's so much. There may be more harm than good, you know, and things like that. And so it's so that they come out of that system and still hold on to that beautiful faith in Jesus, man. They're troopers, bro. Yeah. They're troopers. Most people lose their faith in the church. We've been in this thing for a long time. We've seen many people come and go. But to see somebody still hold on to their faith in Christ, regardless of all of this craziness and foolishness and platforms and notoriety and overlooking and divorce and trauma and death and questions, man, it's so beautiful to see people hold on to their faith, and they're lucky. So, but we all have that bond of the covenant, the bond of the agreement that Christ is so worth it. You know what I'm saying? He's what we agree on. Forget all this other stuff. I remember we were talking about, you know, Reformed theology, and that stuff was, there's a lot of people I would look into and read, and definitely Paul Washer. We found most of us fell in love with Paul Washer's sermon to the youth group, you know, and Paul Washer's this Reformed guy, and he's most likely at a Pentecostal church or something. Kids are talking, they're ecstatic in worship. They're, man, come on, praise God, bro. They're listening to the youth evangelist, and he's giving you all this stuff, and he's like, hold on, and everybody's clapping. He's like, wait, don't clap. He always cries when he talks. Don't clap. I'm talking about you. Yeah. And they're like, oh, snap. And that was like the youth message heard around the world. And that blew him up, really. But we got into him then, and, you know, and the gospel rappers embraced Paul Washer. But I remember several years ago, trying to get my theology on point, making sure I wasn't too new age, make sure I listened to enough Christian doctrine and stuff. But I really love Paul Washer, and I can handle him in segments. But because there's some hoops that you have to jump through to be a Christian, and Paul Washer really believes in those hoops. And I've heard those hoops. I know those hoops. He wants you to be saved at least 6 months before you can call yourself a believer. He wants you, you know, all of these weird things.
I didn't even know all about that.
Yeah. So he would preach all this stuff, and I'm like, okay. He wants you to prove it. Like, don't tell me you're born again. Prove it. Don't. So they really believe in that. But I heard one interview and I knew about these hoops that they want you to jump through to prove that you're a Christian. You got to have fruit. You got to hate the sin that you once loved. You got to do this. You got to do that. You know. And then I listened to an interview, and he was like back to 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 back about what you have to do to be saved. And I'm like, damn, ain't none of us getting in.
Yeah.
We screwed, bro.
For sure.
And like, if we got to really produce these fruits worthy of repentance that he says we got to produce, we're not getting in. We're not. And I was like, you know what, man? Paul Washer, dude, I like a lot of your stuff, but man, I'm not going to put on this monkey suit and come and dance and act like I'm somebody I'm not, and act like I agree with what you guys are petitioning. And all of it's beautiful by itself. When he hit with all that back to back, I was like, this is damn near impossible. But God, right? You know, so thank God that it is by grace through faith, and not
exactly.
How do you balance your Christian walk?
I feel like, to me, the Bible is a lot of driving ourselves to the point where we realize we can't do this. And I feel like a lot of times people take all those rules and stuff and try and make it into something that we're supposed to follow and supposed to try our best and everything like that. And I really have come to the point where I really believe that all of that, at the end of the day, I mean, I do want to live a moral life, and I want to kill, you know, my own personal besetting sins, or, you know, whatever you want to call them. Mm-hmm. I definitely want to strive to get better and be a better person, be a better husband to my wife, and, you know, all that. But at the end of the day, it really is just about driving us to the point where we realize, hey, I can't actually do this. You know, I can't be good enough to to please God or to whatever, because God is already pleased with me through Jesus. That's why Jesus came, was show us, hey, now you guys think you got it all together, but nobody got it together. So,
where does it come into where, like you said, okay, God is pleased with us through Jesus, but maybe there's something that comes into where like man isn't pleased with us, or the pastor or our family isn't pleased with us because of a belief system or because of a lifestyle choice even. I mean, most of us are like, even like our view of God, a lot of it comes from our parents. Like if our parents were always, anytime you mess, like there's parents who, when the kid messes up, they get slapped in the back of the head. When the son says something stupid, he gets slapped, he gets popped. There's abuse and things like that. And many people, even though they've been liberated by Christ, they come into, they still, you're talking about that unlearning process that takes years to unlearn. The reward system. That, oh, you've been a good boy today. Here's a treat. Here's a Coca-Cola, a piece of candy, or whatever. And we look at God and him rewarding us because we're good Christians, or we didn't curse today, or we didn't look at something we shouldn't have. And so it's just performance based, but you eventually find out that it's about the goodness of God, and he doesn't judge us based upon our works. He judges us, like you said, based upon Christ.
No, that puts me at odds with a lot of people who I know and people who I love and people who love me. There are people close to me who I know for a fact are worried about my soul, or whatever you want to call it, and they're probably praying that God gets a hold of me or whatever. And that, I see the light and realize, that I'm too far off on the grace spectrum, or, whatever you want to call it. My wife was talking to a pastor, and my wife kind of also was questioning some of the things that she had been taught growing up, deconstructing a little bit, if you want to call it that, and just kind of finding freedom in Jesus. And talking to a pastor about it, and they were like, oh, well, so I see what you're saying. You're trying to find the balance between between the legalism that you were under and like the free grace end of the spectrum or the easy grace, whatever that your husband is on. And she told me about that, and I was like, yeah, they probably meant that, didn't mean it as a compliment, but I kind of take it as a compliment, because like, I still believe, like, I 100% believe that sin is sin. And I still 100% believe that evil is evil, and there's wrong and there's right and everything like that. But I also believe that God's grace is free, and that God's grace is good, and that God does, like I say, keep working on us and doesn't just throw us away whenever we mess up. So, yeah.
That's good, man. And you're not alone. There's many people who come to that conclusion. And the fact that you've seen a lot, man. You've been through a lot, and you're still a young man, and you still have that faith in Christ, man. You're still cultivating that daily. As far as like your belief system, as far as, let's look at some of the far out spiritual stuff, as far as, and I know I go way far out more than you, so let's just not try to compare this. But let's go as far out as some of the, the early Pentecostal stuff that you've seen. Does that stuff have a special place in your heart? And I know I'm bringing this stuff up, and you've probably been back and forth with it. There comes a time where you hate it, and I can't believe we did this, and this is how shallow our religious was. Our religious was based upon a holy hallelujah, or and these if you didn't fall out, then God didn't show up. This kind of weird theology we've learned in the charismatic movements and stuff like that, and blessings. Because you come from that, right? Of just Benny Hinn, the anointing, the whole church falling out when the pastor waves his hand, shaking and trembling under the power of God. You still believe in that the Holy Spirit and the baptism that comes and cleans you out, and that shaking and quaking, and does those times in your life still mean something to you, and do you still practice that?
I believe that it can happen. I don't believe that most, like, I'm going to say like throw a number out there, like 90% of the stuff that you see in those churches.
That's a big percent, bro.
It's a big percent, but I've been it. I've been there, bro, and I've lived it. You know, I've been the one who fell out on the floor because everybody else was falling out on the floor.
Yeah.
And like, oh man, you know, I need to stay here and like, you know, people will talk about God knocked them out and they were just out, and then they came to like they were literally unconscious. That's never happened. But I would fall out.
But there's a euphoria that comes with it, right?
Yeah.
Is that from the spirit of expectancy? And I know that now. This is crazy, bro. I've been thinking about this a lot lately. That I mean, God, the Bible is full of, we want to call it the placebo effect.
Yeah.
And God responding to your faith, what you believe. And I believe if that man of God touches me, God is going to hit me. And if that man of God doesn't touch you, God doesn't hit you unless you press through and say, God, I need you. I don't care. You didn't touch me. You know, and then so like, do we create it in our minds?
I think a lot of it is definitely created in our minds. And I'm not going to say that it's not all genuine. Like, I think some of it is absolutely like faked and people just trying to put on a show. I think a lot of it is 100% genuine, people actually trying to seek God and really like, just doing the best that they know how, and worshiping in the way that they've been taught to worship. But I don't think that most of it is literally God knocking.
Okay, well, what about the new manifestation? Surely you've been in churches that have an outpouring, and they don't know any of that, right? So that's some of the rare occasions that God showed up with fire, and that He just did a new thing for them. They don't know religion, they don't know doctrine, they don't know about shaking and quaking and crying and spinning or even running around the church. You know, I know, but it becomes a part of the tradition, a part of the religious routine that we do to talk to God or meet with God every Sunday, Wednesday, whenever. But God does show up. So you're saying that you believe that He does do that, but just not as much as we would. Maybe we feel like we learned the formula.
Exactly.
That if we do this, He'll show up, and it's like, no, I'm moving like I moved in the Old Testament, as you had to follow me, and I don't hover there. Yeah,
no, that's definitely that's really what I believe, basically. That I think, like I said, I think that God can and does work however God wants to work. Like, God does what God wants to do. But hold on, just 1 second.
Somebody trying to get inside?
No, that's my cat, bro.
Oh, the cat's trying to type on the keyboard.
My cat learned that if he jiggles the door handle, we'll let him out on the board.
You got to film it. Put it on YouTube. You'll be famous.
We have. I think if we had one of those like long handles, I'm pretty sure he would figure out how to open it up himself.
Yeah.
But no. I definitely think that God does whatever God wants to do. But I think sometimes, or a lot of times, we will stop at where we first experienced God and think, okay, this is the way that God hit me, you know, back then. So I'm going to try to find that experience again. And it's almost like a drug in a sense, you know.
Yeah, definitely. I got rebuked by the Lord because of that. Yeah, you get that first hit, and then you want that feeling again. Chase it high.
Exactly. And for a lot of people, it's not even about like actually seeking God. It's about that feeling.
Yeah. Well, let's just look at it a little bit closer, because I mean, for me and for many people, like the presence of God, the Holy Spirit, it takes the place of the drug. Like they get delivered from drugs because they've received the perfect drug, which is the presence of God, which is intoxicating, which is otherworldly, and even where you came up with your name, right? Your name SA115 that you went by early on, like it has something to do with being intoxicated, right? Or
it was that it was Hannah was when Hannah, the mother of Samuel the prophet, she was in the temple or in the tabernacle praying for a child because she couldn't have a child, and the priest thought that she was drunk, and she said, 1 Samuel chapter 1 verse 15 says, it's a paraphrase because I don't remember it anymore exactly, but Yeah, it's been a while. But she says something like, no, I'm not drunk as you suppose. I'm just pouring out my heart to God or whatever. I'm just pouring out my grief to God. And so I definitely think I don't even think that all of that has to be like God hitting you with putting you in some trance or whatever. I definitely believe in being expressive and having emotions and feeling emotions towards God. And because God created emotions, God gave us emotions. And so I don't believe in being stoic or whatever. I definitely believe in vibrant worship and all that. I just hate it when it becomes a ritual and like a form that people think you have to follow, or when it becomes a ritual that we put on ourselves because of how we experienced God the first time. So
yeah, there's a lot to explore there, man. But I've had some, I've been many different places in the spirit and religion and philosophy and stuff, and just understanding the power of thought. I mean, just even the biblical stuff, like, the power of your mind and spoken word and creating it, and like creating those experiences and creating those atmospheres and wanting them so bad enough that you got it. And that goes with anything. That goes if you want drugs, you're going to want them, you'll go look for them, and wanting that encounter, whether it's God showing up or not, you and your friends created that. You guys wanted it. The pastor wanted it. It's very interesting to look into, man. And I don't want to, it makes you like question for a second, was all of it made up? Did I will all of this to happen?
I've been there. Yeah.
Did we, like, really on a subconscious level, like every time we got what we were looking for, but then again, back to the scripture, God said, do that.
Yeah.
Seek me, you'll find me. If you don't seek me, you won't find me. You know what I'm saying? So it's part of, I think God's a lot deeper than we've been taught. I think these scriptures are speaking even deeper when we talk about this stuff. It's like placebo. I mean, I talk about all the time how Jesus went into certain towns, the Son of God made manifest before men. Jesus went into certain towns and couldn't heal nobody. Yeah. Oh, that's the carpenter, bro. That's TruthSeekah, bro. That's SA 115, bro. You're rendered powerless. This is the Son of God. He goes into other towns. They've heard renown. Oh, man, there was a crazy guy chained up on an island. Jesus shows up, heals him. The guy's holding down a regular job. He's talking to people. He loves the Lord now. And this guy was cutting himself every day. But Jesus showed up and like, where's Jesus? I got a son that needs to be healed, and so as a spirit of expectancy, me and you experienced it. I know I did. And this revelation came deeper to me whenever I hit you up. I was like, hey, dude, I can't really go to church around here. People know me. My reputation precedes me. They think they got a witch in their church or something. Come with me to Louisiana because Todd Bentley's going to be there. I persecuted him in the past. I would like to go and kind of pay my respect and seek God. And I knew, I was looking forward to our trip to bond together. We haven't hung out in a long time, and I said, I know that we were listening to worship the whole time, expecting a move of God. I had a really powerful encounter, and it didn't take much of Todd Bentley really didn't even have to do much, is what I'm saying. My expectancy for God to meet me when we drove there, that he was going to do it, and he did it. And I got what I was looking for, and we always do that, so it becomes something a lot more deeper than God. And Jesus always said, hey, according to your faith, it's given unto you. Well, I don't believe. Okay, me neither. But if you do believe it, whatsoever you believe, you're going to have it. Whatever. So that's where doctrine comes into play. That's where bigotry comes into play. That's where all of the end of the world and the RFID chip and the social security card comes into play.
Yeah.
It was real for your parents, man.
Yeah, it was. Definitely.
It was definitely, it was life or death for them.
Yeah.
And they responded accordingly, and they believed it. And everybody with all their weird far out theology, they believe that stuff for a reason. Yeah. And it's near and dear to their heart, whoever they are, whether they agree with us or whether they're against us. It's very intricate to understand why they believe and do what they do. But that's the power of the mind, man, and the power of faith, dude. I believe it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. No, it's trippy when, well, I guess when I first started realizing that people who I disagreed with strongly, like actually held beliefs like as powerfully as I believed, that, you know, in heaven and hell and Jesus and whatever, everything that I have ever believed, as powerfully as I believed in that, someone across the world believes something completely different, but just with the same amount of fervor and passion and 100% is 100% convinced. They have all of their, you know, archaeological proof, and they got their, you know, they got their experts and their teachers and everybody to tell them, oh, you know, this is the truth and you're supposed to believe this. And it's trippy when you start thinking about that, because like just thinking about, I don't know, it kind of, to me, just really made me question for a while, like, wow, like, is anything that I believe actually true, you know? And so that's part of what brought me to the point where I've just decided to rely on God, like, just completely. Like, Andy Mineo has a song where he says, yeah,
I remember that.
Like, I'll bet it on my life that it ain't going to be based on works or whatever. So it's literally like, just, I'm putting all my chips in, so to speak. You know, I'm just like, I don't claim that I have answers. I don't know a lot of stuff. I am just putting all my chips in on Jesus, on God's love for us. You know, that's not
going to put warm butts in seats, though, Samuel. You know that. You have to make up an answer, Samuel. Come on. Yeah, there's people listening to this right now. You trying to plug your album, and the people are looking. You know, and we've been to those churches who the pastor has no idea, but they're going to make it up and act like they do. Yeah. You know, and it's something they've never studied or whatever. It's crazy, but it really is the way that, you know, manipulation comes in. Again, man, you've seen a lot of my journey, man, and when I really ran into that Billy Graham segment at the end of the Robert Schuller interview, where Billy Graham said that Jesus has a people for his namesake all across the world. They may be in Hinduism, they may be Buddhist, they may have not even have heard the name of Jesus, but they're seeking out something deeper that they know to be God, whatever that is, and they know that they need something outside of themselves. Romans 1 and 2, God reveals himself to them, and that's all. This the only teachers who are around. Yep. When I needed God, I cried out to Jesus. Jesus showed up. You know, and that's the religion of our day. We're here in the U.S. We're raised Baptist. I knew that. Someone else has a different story, but there's something similar deep in the hearts of those people. Just like there's people in the churches now who they do all the right stuff. They say all the right things. They've learned the motions like you've been talking about. Yeah. But Jesus is going to say, hey, depart from me, you who practice lawlessness. I never knew you. Why do you say, Lord, Lord, but don't obey me? Why do you do the things that I hate? These are people who are healing people, casting out demons, got it all figured out. But at the end of the day, they knew not love, man. They didn't know him. They had a form of godliness, but denied the power thereof. Stuff starts to make a little bit more sense. Yeah. I think so.
It's crazy because all my life I was taught that, you know, the truth is unpopular and it's never going to be popular for you to, you know, take a hard stance and make sure everybody knows what you believe about homosexuality and marriage and sex before marriage and purity and all these hot button issues and abortion and all that. And you got to hold to this standard. And it's not going to be popular, but you got to stick with it. And I realized, man, all that stuff is extremely popular. Like that fills church pews every Sunday. I mean, all of that stuff. People will seek out a church that so quote unquote teaches hard teaching. You know, like they'll look for that because it's popular. But what's not popular is saying it's to say, hey, you know, all of this religion means nothing, you know, if you don't have love. Like that's really I've realized that's really what's unpopular today, at least in the church.
Yeah.
Is when you take a stance and say, no, I mean that all of this is great, but it don't mean nothing at all. It might seem real, it might even be real. Your perception of truth, to some extent, shapes the truth around you. You know, perception sometimes is, and we used to go back and forth on this. I remember you used to talk about, no, perception is truth. And I'd be like, no, there's one truth. And I still believe that there is one truth. I still absolutely believe it.
And for you, there's only one truth.
Exactly.
Because you believe it.
Exactly. Perception often, it's deep. And I feel like deep. When I talk, I'm going to get shunned by the few remaining people around me.
Just so they know where you are, man. You know, and the thing is, like, good. This is what we signed up for. Yeah. We've heard sermons about this the whole time. And you remember, like, when God calls you and you really step out there, no one's going to accept you. No one's going to believe you. But you got to stay focused. Like, okay, we're here. Nobody's accepting me. Nobody's believing me. You know, and then now it's so funny because, like, we have a mutual friend who I tried to rebuild our friendship about probably 2 years ago now, just because we had been off speaking terms for so long. And, they were like talking about how, like, I'm only doing what I'm doing now is because it's lucrative, is what he said. And he tried to, like, rebuke me and say it was lucrative. It's like, bro, I've been doing this when I was the laughing stock of my town, and I still do this as the laughing stock of my town. But who's laughing now? Now that it's successful, now that I've shown myself faithful with what God has called me to, and now it's working out. Now it's lucrative, or now you get to make a living doing it, and now you're this and that, you know. And shout out to you again, man, because, like, one of the things you told me, because I went back and forth, and I talk about this all the time, and I'm embarrassed of it, but many people do it too, and I have to talk about it because there's other people listening to this who are where I was and are where you were, and there's young people listening to this, and they're like, man, I'm in the same boat. I don't know. And I have the questions, and I get laughed at when I ask questions, and I don't think homosexuals are going to hell, and they think I'm reprobate now, you know, and just, these are the conversations of the day. We got to we're talking about it. And this is especially from a Christian standpoint. But, one thing you told me, I was going back and forth, and it got really weird. It became really obsessive, and I didn't know. I know I'm still a believer, but I know I'm into these things. I'm fasting, I'm praying, I'm begging God, I'm seeking him in tears. Lord, if this is not of you, I don't want to be a part of it. What does this pull in me to go down these paths? Yeah. And I throw it away. I get rid of everything. I delete all my videos I was working on that were up with thousands of views, 70,000, 50,000. I delete them all and say, no, it's all going to be about Jesus from here on out. No Kundalini, no anything, no Nephilim, no nothing. And it's always all Jesus until it's about Jesus in baptism, or Jesus in tithing, or Jesus in fasting. And then it's not about all Jesus anymore, isn't it? It's about your opinion and what the Word of God says, and rightly dividing the word of truth. And now we're stuck here about giving an opinion about our belief system. So it's not about all Jesus anymore. So we try to go back to that innocence that we had in Christ, but it's not really there, for good reason. We've built upon it. God doesn't want us being naive and all of that stuff anymore. He's taken us through places that we've learned things, and there's character that's birthed in us, and lessons that we learned that cost a lot of tears and things. And so I would go back and forth, and I would delete my website, and man, I would redo a website in like a couple hours. I would have my website up and all my new esoteric music and Lost Children of Babylon, and then I would get made fun of and then have a pull back to me, because all my friends would laugh and, oh, you really hanging out with witches, or whatever they would say. I wasn't even a part of that conversation, honestly, but it pulled me back and forth, and you've seen that, and I was honest with you, and there's really two of you. I'll say two. Let me say four. Let me say you, King James, Watchman, and Cook. Well, Watchman and Cook followed me down those paths for good ways. Praise God. But, you guys really were there for me going through it, and you told me, and I wrote this down because it stood out, but you were like, this was like one of the last times I was like, all right. And this was probably a year, maybe 2-year period of going back and forth and just freaking out, man. Don't know, because I'm fasting away this stuff. But God is opening up doors, and I have this burden on me. And then when I put it all away, get rid of everything, I feel like I'm selling myself out, that God has called me to these realms and to these people groups and to be interested in these things. But I'm like shunning it because I want to be accepted by the church crowd. And you said, Derek, like, if God has called you to be an apostle to the New Age community, to reach out to the spiritual community, then do it. But if God has called you to reach the church crowd and perform in churches and all of that, then do it. But you need to choose, because you can't keep going back and forth. And it was really when you told me that, it's like, you know what? I know people are perceiving this, and I know I look crazy, and it's like, you know what? I'm gonna do it. And so I just really, and it's not still been easy. I went through a dark night, man, of just, all of my friends who we would have conversations with brothers, and you know how this is. I'm a grown man, and I'm on the phone with another Christian, and he's like, all right, when it's time to hang up, he's like, all right, brother. All right, man. I love you, bro. And for me, I have to check on myself. I don't tell another dude that I love you. I didn't even have a dad that I told I love him, right? I didn't have that. So for another man to say I love you, I'm like, all right, bro, I love you too, man. And I really meant it. I'm like, okay. But then you go through that, and those people that you did ministry with and who put you on platforms and gave you applause and were, hey, in the trenches with you, when you go through it, they're nowhere to be found.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And so that was a really hard lesson, and to go through that. But you find out that the fruits of the Spirit are real. Like when you really have that truth of what you believe, it's like, I tried to run you away, and tried to say, I remember giving you the Book of Enoch. Hey, bro, you got to read this. It's deep, man. Yeah. And your dad found it.
Literally took it away from me, and like I think he like left it on your front porch or something.
He brought it to the church and put it in an envelope.
Oh yeah.
And wrote my name on it at the church. She's like, hey, somebody dropped this off for you, Derek. I was like, hey, what's this, a package at the church? Here's the Book of Enoch.
That's crazy. Yeah, no, man. Dude, I'm kind of been in a kind of sort of place like you. Like before I moved here, I was preaching, like in churches, like all over the Mobile area, and I was doing that pretty steadily. And then I started being vocal about some of my beliefs and stuff that I was discovering for myself. Kind of like you said, like you were, open about it as you were going through it. I was definitely very, very vocal as I was.
Facebook.
Yeah, on Facebook.
I was too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so some of those preaching gigs or whatever you want to call them started drying up a little bit, but then other doors were opening and stuff. But since I moved here, I think I've preached maybe twice, maybe 3 times since then. And one time was a youth meeting, like a youth camp or whatever, and then the other time was a couple months ago. But no, I mean, it's ever since I started being vocal about stuff that I believe that doesn't go with, evangelicalism, conservative, the Christian right or whatever. Ever since I started being vocal about that, people started like, okay, no, you can't come to our church anymore. And my mom told me, you got to stop talking about this stuff. Like people literally told me, hey, you can believe what you want, but you got to stop talking about this so that you can, for the sake of your ministry or whatever, so that you can continue to be in these circles. And I was like, I mean, this whole time, I look back at some of the stuff that I've said and I kind of cringe at some of the stuff I used to say. But back then, whenever, the whole time I was just trying to share the truth as I knew it. This whole time, that's all that I've been. I wasn't trying to make a name for myself or trying to do anything like that. I was just trying to share the truth. And now that the truth that I'm finding, that I'm discovering, is starting to clash with people, now I'm supposed to be quiet about it. Like now, okay, so now before it was all, no, don't hide your light under a bushel, but now I get to hide.
Because it don't line up with what they believe. But this is what we've been hearing, that it's not going to. It's going to be countercultural, and the culture that you were in was church culture.
Yeah.
And you're finding truths, you're finding universal truths even, and God loves everybody, and let me just be an extension of that love, and all this practical stuff. Practical, not Christianese and stuff like that. You start finding out and being vocal, and then I think where you messed up is you put your mouth on their savior, bro. Like you and I never thought that you would like really go in on the savior of evangelical Western Christianity, and you went in on him. How dare you?
Exactly, bro.
The orange one I'm talking about, not the brown skin one. The orange one.
Yeah, no, they don't even believe the brown skin one, bro.
I know. The white skin one.
That's
the pale one.
Tell people Jesus wasn't white. What? they know it, but once you actually like try to tell them, no, Jesus really he didn't. It don't
matter what color he was.
It don't matter. Yeah, but he didn't experience the world that you experience. But no, people. It
don't matter what color he is until he's black. Then it matters.
Exactly.
For real.
It matters. Yeah. No, it's man, and not to go too deep into that, but or into what you were saying about me putting my mouth on your savior.
Yeah, Donald Trump.
But that was kind of the breaking point. One of the breaking points for me. I was already doing a lot of deconstructing of my own beliefs and stuff, but that was kind of the breaking point when I realized. Like there were all these different candidates that they could have picked from being Republicans. Everybody, they think that you have to be Republican to be Christian or whatever. So even that aside, there were all these different candidates that Christians could have picked from. And all these people who I know are saying, oh, I just voted for him because he was the only alternative. And it just came down. I wanted somebody else. Bro, how did he become the candidate then? Because y'all all voted him in. Like in the primaries, you can say all you want to that you were pushing for somebody else, but you picked this guy because this is what you actually believe. And that was kind of like a blindfold got taken off my eyes, and I realized, whoa, these people, they can talk a good game, but when it comes down to it, they care more about power and about just like bullying people into their way. Like they want to win this imaginary culture war so bad that they don't care at what cost. Like they would rather.
The abortion thing is huge right now.
Yeah. They would rather.
You did a post on it recently. I've stayed away from that stuff. I know people who've had abortions. I have opinions, but I have other things I'd rather talk about that I think are more important than abortion. And I remember for the Christian, there's nothing more important than abortion. But what's more important than abortion for me is the principle of raise your kids up in the way that they should go, and when they're older, they will not depart for them from that. That covers abortion, people. That covers everything. Raise them up in the truth and love them whether they have an abortion or not. Like people, this internet is so crazy, man. It's so polarizing, and it gives people a platform, and it gives and people will say, keyboard cowards come out. These people would never say this to you in public.
Yeah.
They would never say it, but they get behind the keyboard and they say whatever they want, whatever comes to them. That's what I remember the first time I started seeing that. I'm like, bro, we hang out every day. And you don't bring this stuff up in real life, but you get on the internet, you want to get all deep and debatable. And you gave me 17 points, and you want me to address all those points on a Facebook post. You're crazy. Yeah. I can't type that fast. Let's sit down and talk. Let us reason. I'll do that with you. But I'm not finna, you see that online. It's like, oh, Lord, the agenda. We talked about this on a couple episodes ago with a guy about the Trump thing. The weirdest thing for me, coming from being an evangelical and knowing who Trump is and who he is, what he represents, the weirdest thing for me coming from Christendom was watching them teach him Christianity on camera and watching the evangelical pastors, Paula White, Creflo, whoever, it was a bunch of them, watch them like pray for him. They lay hands on him. He's like, oh, what are you doing? Like he doesn't understand any of it, but they're like, no, he's the Christian choice. and him just holding the Bible, and he was one of my favorite chapter is Corinthians type deal, like
two
just
Corinthians.
two Corinthians.
Yeah,
like
Corinthians.
It's so funny he's like a monkey, like they gave a monkey the Word of God. It's like, what is this? It was really interesting just to see while they were praying, God, I ask you to bless him, Lord. Raise him up, God. Raise up a standard through him. He's like, just looking at him all weird. He doesn't get it. He's like an alien. It's really weird. Did you notice any of that?
Nah, man. Yeah, I definitely saw that.
They got an alien in there laying hands on him.
Well, it's just, I mean, and justifiably so. Like, if you're not from that specific church culture, which like Paula White and all her crowd and all that, they're not even like mainstream Christian. They're like a specific like sect where even people from out in mainstream Christianity look at that weird. So I mean, I can only imagine somebody who doesn't have any knowledge of all that bull that goes down. Like there was a lot of people. What's the guy that was POW, McCain? Yeah.
So what's the big guy with the 7 blood moons, John Hagee?
Yeah.
John Hagee tried to endorse McCain. McCain said, "Hey, I don't need you, big buddy. Sit down somewhere, big buddy. I don't need you. You too wild for me. You on this weird Jesus became savior later to the Jewish nation and just a bunch of weird theology." He said, "Sit down, big buddy." But it's so funny to see, how the conservatives try to get in that field.
It's funny, but at the same time, like it's like ingenious almost. Like I look at it like from a strategy standpoint, and man, like he tapped into something like that's been laying dormant, and people want to blame it on President Obama or President Trump and blame all the division on stuff. No, this has been sitting here. This has been sitting, and they found it and they were able to tap into it, and it was weird to him, but he was like, okay, I'm gonna sit through this and learn about it because I see that this is a niche that needs to be filled, and power at all costs, or whatever you want to call it.
It's a strong vote.
Yeah,
the Christian vote is a strong vote. As if our votes matter. That's a whole nother subject. Or which states' votes matter. That's a subject, right?
Exactly.
So like I've heard it said, just like Obama did, like I was cool with Obama, even being a Democrat or whatever. I was cool with him. Because he's the cool pastor. I mean, the cool president, the cool pastor, kind of same thing. But like he got Jay-Z. He's shooting basketball with the Lakers and Kanye West, and he's got them all in the White House, and he's just one of the fellas. He won them over. He was a people person, right? But at the very end, all of this crazy stuff got passed as far as on the conservative side, the transgender issues, the same-sex marriage. Like right at the very end, he's like, he got him in. He's like, tricked you. And then so it got really, really weird there for a while for Christians, right? We're under attack. All of this stuff is passed. It got really weird. So Trump, the cry for Trump was like the right one. 3 months and we're doing what now? There's men taking a crap in a stall next to my daughter. Where are we at with this? We need a savior. I'm here, the orange one. I'm here to save you. So he's like the blowback, and it's like so right. But I think they do that to keep us doing this. I think that's a strategy of someone who is controlling both of those sides. And say, hey, we got them good. They'll keep consuming, keep them in fear, make them feel like they have a say so. It gets deep, That's just my opinion. But we definitely could see that happening and someone watching back, and I don't know. I try not to get into politics anymore because it's so polarizing, and I don't feel like it really matters again. I know there's things that do matter, right? Don't get me wrong, and some people are very passionate, and some people are called to that. I really do believe that. Is Paula White and those guys called to that? I'm not sure, but they're there. Pray for them, while they're there, I guess. I don't know.
I mean, I feel that, and I don't doubt that some of that stuff is real. Like, I mean, I'm no doubt there are people, I mean, behind the scenes, pulling strings and puppeteering and all that stuff. But for me, like, as much as anybody who follows me online or whatever knows that I can be quite political at times. But for me, it's not even really about politics. Like, and it sounds like people don't really believe me when I say that, but it's not. It's about,
you're holding up a mirror.
Yeah. It's what are we, like, as people who are calling ourselves Christians, calling ourselves followers of Jesus, like, what type of Jesus are we presenting to the world? Like, we're presenting this ugly picture, and we're supposed to be drawing people to the love of God, and all the while, like, it's you know, it's comes down to what Jesus said about what profit is it if we gain the whole world but lose our soul. And right now, I feel like the church is gaining the world. Like, as far as America, we're winning, quote unquote, the culture battle, or I say we, I don't really count myself as part of that, but like, Christianity is winning the culture battle. But like, at what cost? You know, what are we doing as far as reaching people with the love of God? And I feel like that this whole Christianity winning has really set us back as far as just ministering to people, which is what we're here for. We're not here to push our own stuff through. You know, we're not here to win. We're here to be servants. So that's really what it all boils down to in the end for me. Just, I want to see. Yeah.
You also likened it to, was it King Cyrus? King Saul, where Israel became a nation and they wanted a ruler. They had God lording over them and being their God and being their covering, being their provider. But they said, no, we need somebody else. We need another one. We like God, but we need another one. Give us another one. And you likened that election to watching how the Christians were like begging for a ruler. Yeah. And you kind of likened that to King Saul, like, okay, because when they got what they were looking for, it bit them on the butt, and and it wasn't a righteous thing, right?
Exactly. And I feel like I've been seeing that, like, and honestly, you know, all our lives we've been told that there was going to come, you know, there's going to come a time when people are going to depart from the faith, or, you know, the great falling away, or the like separating of wheat from the chaff, or, you know, whatever, all those different pictures the Bible talks about. And I feel like recently that's been just pushing, like, out of nowhere, which somewhat like makes me believe that maybe this is all building up to an end or whatever. Yeah. But out of nowhere, it seems like there's been, to me, I view it as a great falling away, in that people, like, when there's a like an army or whatever, you know, this army is moving forward, and when someone falls away from the army or falls back, they just stay in the same place. It's not like they're running away or whatever. They just stay where they're at, and they're falling back or falling away. And I kind of see that, like, now with the election and with everything, all the craziness that's going on right now. I feel like the Spirit is moving, you know, the Spirit of God is moving forward. Mm-hmm. And a lot of Christianity has just like fallen away, like just like stayed, okay, I'm comfortable here, I'm just going to stay right here, you know? And so yeah, that's that's kind of what it all comes down to for me. Bigger than politics, bigger than who's president. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love politics. I can talk politics all day probably, but bigger than all of that is just like.
Well, we really had you on here for an intervention. You know, it's so funny. It's so funny. We had an inside joke that I still say sometimes. People don't get it, but guard your flock.
Yeah, guard your flock. Bro.
Guard your flock. And I want to say that because we're having this talk about Christ and stuff, and I'm looking at this. For those of you who are watching, you can see this, but people on the podcast can't. But you have a pagan. You quoting a pagan philosopher right above your head, hanging on your wall. Really?
See, I didn't even know. I didn't even know all that.
Did you really didn't?
A cool quote. No.
You don't know who said that?
No, I don't. Who said it?
It says, "Be the change you want to see in the world."
Yeah.
It's the same person who said, "I like your Christ." don't really care much for his for your
Really?
Christians.
Really, I did not know that.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm not going to tell you who it is because you're going to take
that's,
it down.
No. That's what's his name? What was that? The Dalai Lama? I forget who it was.
Gandhi.
It's like
It was Gandhi.
Yeah.
But that's a beautiful, true quote.
Exactly.
But now you know who said it, you might feel a certain type of way. At least back in the day you would have. I don't know about now. I'm pretty sure it's still a beautiful quote no matter. I don't care if Satan came here and, hey, be the change you want to see, and left like, hey, we could get behind that. Let's just talk. Let's walk the walk.
Yeah.
Let's walk the walk. Let's don't tell people. I watched a video on that today, just people like this, like you telling people, hey, I'm about to start a diet. Hey, I'm about to start a fast. Hey, I'm about to start a podcast. Man, do it.
Yeah.
Telling everybody. I can show you better than I can tell you. I tell God that all the time. I get with the Lord and I'm just in worship and I'm like, you want to tell him what you're going to do and stuff. You're like, you know what, I'm going to show you, Lord. Because you try to like give him lip service. It's like, look, man, repent. Bring forth meat worthy of repentance and show me. I want to sit here and talk about it and tell people, look, let me see what you're going to do, man. Don't talk about it, you know, and be the change you want to see in the world, man, I think is a beautiful quote. But
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, hopefully you keep it up.
that doesn't change for me. I mean, I don't know if any of my family or whatever are watching now. They're like, Samuel, take it down. It's down. It's not Christian.
It's not a Christian. They heard the intro.
Yeah.
She's in the intro. Yeah, man. Christian rap. Are you working on any music? If you did, would it be Christian rap? Would you break down the gospel in every song? Would you teach Bible stories in every song? Would you say, I like blue, y'all like yellow, some light blue? Your first song I ever heard, bro. That was a weird song, dude. But it's a weird song, but you know, I was thinking about it even the other day of like, when can I get Samuel on? I thought about that song, and that song is just even more true today than ever.
Yeah.
You know, even
Absolutely.
what we're talking about. Absolutely. You may like this, you may like that, but at the end of the day, let us come together and walk in love and unity and peace. Be the change we wish to see.
Yeah, so quick aside story, funny story behind that song. It was a preacher, actually. I was in a church service, and they were preaching about differences and how we fight about stuff, and they literally started chanting, I like blue, you like yellow, and like, hey, drummer, get me something. I was like, hey, I got to put that on the song. But anyways, but yeah, no, it's definitely still true. I'm working on stuff. I can't say working. I'm sitting on a bunch of stuff, bro. I got a bunch of songs ideas and like beats and stuff that I've written a bunch of stuff, bro. I've gotten to the point where I think people would call it that. I wouldn't necessarily say I'm setting out to write Christian music, quote unquote. I definitely have a worldview that seeps into everything I do, and that sounds like the cliche answer that all the Christian rappers are giving right now. But for real, like I definitely have a viewpoint that kind of makes its way. So I mean, you could call it Christian rap. I just kind of talk about God and talk about my life. And so sometimes like I said, sometimes that'll be about God. Sometimes that'll be about, stuff I'm going through. So I'm kind of at a point where I'm maybe a little bit too perfectionist. So I'm trying to build back up my recording studio or whatever. Well, yeah.
We're not as perfectionist as Tave, though.
Oh, really?
He hasn't dropped nothing in so long. He wants to, but he just hasn't.
Oh, really?
And I don't know if he will. Yeah.
That
thing, and shout out to Tave, though. Tave's a really good friend. He's been there with me, even though he's, gone on his journey and did his thing. Yeah. But, shout out to Tave, like, especially with this whole thing of watching it. Like, Tave was about to go to Bible college.
Yeah.
But when all that stuff was happening with me as being a minister and becoming the laughing stock and gossip and backbiting, Tave seen what they did to me. Yeah. He's like, damn, if they did that to him, they'll do that to me. Then he seen them do it to McCray at the same time. He's like, okay, these folks here, like, if I don't agree with everything and sing their song, I can't be around them, you know. And so Tave, that kind of shook him a little bit. He changed the course of his life, and he didn't go to Bible college, and he said that had a lot of impact on him. So watch how you treat people, man. There's more people watching, bro. You know, it should be. It's definitely is a lesson for everyone who was part of that, and definitely a lesson to me. But for sure, man. I'd like to hear some more music. For those of you who don't know, me and Samuel, like I said, I kind of helped him get started early on, and he really progressed past a lot of us early on. Stylistically, he got to kind of learn from us and get to kind of, you know what I'm saying, bypass a lot of things that took us years to learn as far as writing and what he should do and things like that. And Samuel took off really fast and you know, bypassed a lot of us with speed and stylistically and putting really cool stuff in your rhymes. And for those who want to look him up, he's on a lot of my stuff under SA115. So if you type in TruthSeekah and then SA115, we got a bunch of really cool collabs together. Some of them in the Christian rap phase albums. Some of it just pouring out to God. One of my favorite songs I've ever done is especially just my verse. I just really love my rhyming scheme, Origins and Oracles.
Yeah,
you blessed that with the verse, and we're on that one together. But he's got his own stuff too. Recently featured on Watchman's album. Pretty cool verse. But yeah, you got your own stuff too, man. So if you have any plugs where people want to follow you or get to know you or read some of these controversial tweets and stuff, where can they find you, man?
I mean, you can look me up on Facebook, just my name, Samuel McCray, MCCRAY, and you can find me there. Right now I don't have an artist page up on Facebook until I just really want to like do it right when I start putting music out again. So for now, the artist page is down. You can find me on Instagram at it's McCray, ITSMACREIGH. It's a little different spelling of my name. And then the same thing, Twitter at ITSMACREIGH. It's McCray. You can find me on there. And I definitely, I keep saying I'm about to drop some stuff. I'm like I said, I'm sitting on a bunch of stuff. I'm sitting on it. And some of it is insecurity, like looking back at some of the stuff that I have done and going, man, I thought that was great back then, but now I look back and cringe. So some of that's a little bit of that, but no. And then I every so often I'll post some songs that I've done. Honestly, like my favorite songs that I've done has been with you. So like that's, I mean, a lot of stuff. I've done a lot of stuff with you, but that's some of my favorite stuff. One of my favorites is with Cook.
Solo?
Yeah, Solo.
I recently re-uploaded that the other day. Yeah,
that's one of my favorite tracks that I've done. That and everything, or
Yeah, that's a deep one. That song means a lot to me.
So definitely follow me. I'm gonna be putting some stuff out. I promise.
Yeah, make sure y'all follow him. Sam is a really cool guy, a really good person to have in your corner. There's this little snippet here. We mentioned this a while ago.
You like variety and it's an opposite, blue and yellow. I like blue, you like yellow. No fighting with each other, two differences in the color. I like blue, you like yellow.
Which I mean, looking back, compare that to some of the other stuff, like with the people, some of the circle that we were running in right there. Like, it's not that amazing. Like, it's not as bad as some of the people.
He's still trying to defend it. He's still trying to defend it, guys. It's good stuff, man. Yeah. Hey, it's where you come. I mean, I feel the same way about fight music, and a lot of people love it, and
it's. I still like some of the tracks for sure. Like I said, I'm shining still. I like it. It's good stuff. It's good.
All right. Well, I got to jump off here, ladies and gentlemen. We can talk all night and catch up. We do need to catch up some more, man. I'd love to see you in person next time you're in town or whatever the case is. We need to catch up. It was good catching up with you and hearing your story. So much more that we could cover. So much more that we didn't have time to get into. But brother, I love you. I'm praying for you in a way that we need to be praying for each other, and I trust God enough, like you trust Him, that He's good and faithful to complete that good and faithful work in which He started within you, and that's His job, not mine, not anybody else's job. It's not your mom and dad's job either. Sorry, mom and dad, it's God's job, and He's good. He's good at what He does, man. God is good at what He does, and He's got you in the right place for the right reason and for the right season there to reach certain people. And at the end of the day, if you don't stand for what you believe in, who will? You know what I'm saying? Be vocal about your beliefs, your learning, all that kind of stuff is part of it, man. But God loves you for you. You know that, man. And I'm blessed to call you a friend, brother. Here for you. Thank you for being there for me all these years. We got to catch up soon.
Yeah. Absolutely, man. I definitely feel the same about you. Love you for real. And I appreciate your friendship. And definitely, man. I mean, there's times where, like I said, I work all the time, but there are times where I'm driving. I can definitely hit you up sometime or something. We can chop it up later for real.
For sure. Like old time's sake. Get all those same people on the phone.
Yeah, switch it around now. This time I'm the driver now.
That's what's up. All right, brother. Shalom and peace, man. Love you, bro.
All right. Love you too, bro.
All right, peace.
We'll talk to you later. Bye.
Later.
Your way is so much higher than mine, so much higher than mine, so much deeper than mine, so much deeper than mine.
Well, that does it for this episode, folks. To hear more episodes of the TruthSeekah Podcast, head over to TruthSeekah.com. And if you're wanting to support the show and get rewards, go to our Patreon page at patreon.com/TruthSeekah.